GeePawHill in a house and on a screen. Looking at process annotations array. Today's lesson is just going to be about a slow, grinding pick. You can see I'm going to pick at this code until I get it exactly the way I want it to be. Let's start right here. Annotations is the array passed in up here. And since it's directly calling class.getAnnotations, it's either going to be an array with items in it or an empty array. But in neither case is it going to be null. So we're out of there. Good. Now, when I confront a loop body that's as big as this one, I pretty much without any serious thought at all, dash right in and say, wait a minute, let's get myself a method here. Okay, that makes process annotations array no longer very interesting, which is what I wanted. Now, the interest is all in process single annotation. As we read through this code a little bit, you notice that it's structured very heavily from this point forward to be identical. Each line says else if blah blah blah. It immediately does a cast, then it calls out a function. The function apparently can return null, and we check for that, and then we add it to the result. So this is pretty highly duplicated structure here. A couple of things that stand out though. One of them is right here. There's no else if on this line. Okay, that makes me wonder, is it possible to be both a validations object and a validation object? Let's check that out. I'm going to go look at validations. Oh boy, they changed Java during my nap. It's an at interface, okay? In other words, it is an annotation object, directly derived off of the class annotation. Let's see about validation non-plural. Same thing. So what does that mean to us? It means that somebody just left off the else. So that stabilizes things a little bit for me. Okay, so we've got our nice else if chain running all the way through. Now, you see what line I'm on? If temp not equal to null. Now, I'll tell you, I don't always chase down every conceivable test for null and prove that it isn't useful. But in this case, you know what? We have already seen quite a few of these if temp not equal to null that are not needed at all. They are the result of defensive programming and offensive code style. I'm going to take a look at one of these process validators, and I'm going to see, is it possible for it to even return null? I want one with a short name so I can pronounce it. Yeah, email validator. That works for me. All right, we call process email validation. Now, do any of these lines return null? Let's look at this. Okay, validator type, map, if field name not equal to null, params put, else if you boom, look up registered validator type, and then finally return new. Oh boy, don't panic. This is a fluent interface, okay, or an attempt at one. So what we're saying here is create a new validator config builder of the particular type that we're working with, add its parameters, add a single parameter for its name, mark it as a short circuit according to whatever the annotation says about it being a short circuit, set the default message, set the message key, and finally build. So fluent interface, what we're saying here with a fluent interface, we always start by getting ourselves some object that is typically called builder. And what we do is we call a bunch of little functions on this guy, like add params, blah, 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 blah. And they gradually, step by step, prepare the object to be built. And then finally, when we call build, look, it's validator config, just the class that we needed up at the top. Let's take a quick look at build and see if it can fail. All right, build says target params is equal to an unmodifiable map. That's nothing. This looks a little weird, but it's just a swapping. What's going on here is that I want to return the internal field called target. But before I return it, I have to change it to a new value. Notice that the new value is just a nude validator config of the right target. So this is telling me that, in fact, this guy completely follows the normal fluent interface approach. When he's constructed up here, he builds a new validator config in both constructors. When somebody finally calls build, he returns that one that he's been working on, but instantly turns around and makes another. So what does this mean? What it means is that it is not possible, at least in the case of process email validator annotation, to return a null. We either blow up entirely, or we return some sort of properly constructed object. So that's going to mean I can get rid of this. Having gotten rid of it, what I'm going to do now behind the scenes is go down to every one of these process functions, see if they use the same structure, and make the same change if they do. I'll be right back. And there we are. I've gone through and eliminated all of the if branches here because it turns out all of these calls either throw or return a valid member. They never return null. So what's next? Well, we've gotten this branching structure down here a little bit simpler at this point, and that's a good thing, but I want to keep picking at this code just a little bit more before we let it go. Notice something that's going on here. If A is an instance of validations, then process a validation annotation, okay? If it's an instance of validation, then walk it and process, again, valid annotation. This is a little bit different structure than these guys. In particular, the whole body is contained here, and all this guy is a loop. So let's do a couple things here. So the first thing I'm going to do is see about extracting a method here. Field name, method name, result A. And he should be called process valid annotations, but I'm going to say plural here so it's a little more clear. The plural calls the singular, and I'm going to rename that guy. Okay, now these two look exactly alike, but there's still a little difference. What's going on here? What we're seeing is that process expression validator annotation, for some reason, doesn't do the casting or the adding to the result. Now, the person who wrote this factored this code pretty well and made very similar structures in lots of different functions, which is good. But my contention is that they didn't quite go far enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inline this guy first, and I'm going to say all the method declarations, and I'm going to say kill them. So first thing I did was made everything bigger. What happens if I now say, oh yeah, sweet, 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 sweet. I am okay with that. This is process expression validator round 2. Now I've got these guys looking very similar, which pleases me enormously. So what I'm going to do, again, quick like a bunny, I'm going to run through and make this change to everything. Be right back. And there we are. Now this function is looking simpler and simpler as we go along, which is what I like. A couple of more things I want to do while I pick. One is, let's get rid of all these comments. It's not like they're adding to our understanding in any significant or interesting way. Like so. Now I look at this and I think I've just about picked it to death. Okay, so go home to your own code bases and pick. Gradually remove each layer of complication. That's what refactoring is. GeePawHill, peace, out, and kids, drive safe.